I was a very young girl, probably 8 or 9, and I loved horses, but I was timid. So Mom took me to Briar Hall for riding lessons, and Doug introduced me to a very old, quiet horse, and it went from there.
He made us work from the ground up. We learned everything. We didn't just appear and get on our horses and ride. We did all our own schooling, all our own breeding, all our own prepping and grooming. And I think that stood us all in really good stead, because I think we ended up being real horse people.
William Douglas Hood was the only son of Wilfred and Mary Hood. Doug and his 4 sisters grew up on the family farm in Richmond Hill, Ontario. He developed a love for horses at an early age.
He learned from the ground up, believe me, like from the riding stable, from mucking out and feeding probably when he was 8 or 9 or 10, because his dad needed help in the stable, and just getting up on the horses, the unknown horses, and training them or riding them for some other person just at the last minute, gave Doug a really good knowledge of horses.
Young Doug and Jimmy were members of the Eglinton Pony Club for many years and maintained their friendship on the Canadian equestrian team in the 1950s and early 60s. Doug proudly represented Canada on many Nations Cup teams on the fall indoor circuit. He also achieved success on the international and open jumper divisions. His favorite horses included Flash Gordon and Cairo Lad. After Doug retired from the Grand Prix circuit, Cairo Lad's career took an interesting twist.
Well, the first meeting I had with Doug, I happened to qualify for the Canadian equestrian team in that year on a very good horse. And I lost that very good horse, and basically had to start all over again. And while I was thinking about starting all over again and trying to figure it out, Doug Hood called me out of the blue, and he said, "Why don't you come to the farm and try out my horse?" So I hopped in the car and I went to Doug's farm, and he put me on a horse called Cairo Lad. And he put me over fences that were bigger than anything I'd ever jumped in my entire life. And when I finished schooling, I said, "What's the deal?" And he said, "Doug, it's your horse."
The establishment of Briar Hall Stables marked another stage of Doug's life, and his gift for teaching and communicating came to the fore.
Doug was such a great motivator in terms of taking a young raw talent, which I really was. Talent might be overstating it, but I was raw when I came to him. I was just from the Eglinton Pony Club. I was in rubber boots. I had zero sophistication for riding, and he gave it all to me. He imparted all of his personal experience because he had been on the team. He just groomed me to be ready to succeed.
I think Doug really formed me as a rider. As I said, the equitation was the utmost importance to him, and he was a perfectionist. I mean, nothing could be wrong, not your clothes, not your heels, your hands. I mean, we really worked hard at home. You would walk in days and there'd be no stirrups on any of the saddles, and that's how you rode for the week.
Doug inherited a disciplined approach to his riding and coaching from his father, but his training methods were strictly his own.
I remember Doug had a very small indoor arena, and there would be maybe 15 of us, and we would have a lesson in his arena and do a gymnastic on our horse, and after we would come back to the line and all of us had done this gymnastic test, he would say, "Get on the horse behind you." And we would get off our mount and we would get on the animal behind us, whether it was a large pony or a Grand Prix jumper or a hunter, and we would do this gymnastic on the strange horse until all 15 of us got our own horses back. So we did this test 15 times until it was ingrained in our minds.
Many of Canada's top equitation, hunter, and jumper riders over the years spent time at Briar Hall Stables under Doug's guidance.
Doug's influence was to take young people, give them a great sense of confidence with positive reinforcement, with great guidance, with an enthusiasm, a youthful enthusiasm for the sport that he imparted to all of his students. And for me, I think his greatest influence was giving me the confidence to go forward, taking me from a pony clubbing teenager all the way to the Canadian equestrian team. And for that, I'll be forever grateful.
From a very early age, Doug developed a love of practical jokes.
If you ended up going to a show that was outside the area and you happened to stay with Doug Hood and you didn't really know him, and this happened to me when I went to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, he would have a habit of putting black shoe polish on the black toilet seats in the bathroom. And then after he did that, what he would do is he would sit back and just watch and see all the repercussions and have a good chuckle himself.
Doug's lifetime accomplishments are long and illustrious. Chef d'equipe of the Canadian equestrian team, senior level and course designer, founding member of the Canadian Professional Horsemen Association. But his greatest legacy lies with those who learned from him at Briar Hall.
Watching him at the ring when his students or clients were in the ring, you've never seen anybody who rode so hard standing on one or two legs at the gate. And his body was in constant motion. I mean, he was, you know, and he had to walk away sometimes. He was so enthusiastic about what was going on.
I think the most important thing he did for me, and this is really critical, is when it was time for me to go to the United States to have fiercer competition, more pressure, Doug did not stand in my way. He allowed that door to open and he encouraged me to walk through it. And that, I think, was his greatest gift as a coach.